Oh, almost dropped it, but it's almost dropped it. Hey guys, welcome to my spring book recommendations and TBR video. Today, it is still not really spring here. We still have a lot of snow, but I am in a spring mood. So I thought I would share a bunch of books that I think are great to read in spring, ones I've read before. Some of these definitely have spring vibes, and that's why I want to share them. Like, they're either kind of set in the spring or they have like garden themes, that kind of thing. And then there's other ones that I just feel like would be good for this season, even if I can't exactly describe why, but I wanted to put them on this list. And then after that, we're going to get into my spring and TBR. Once again, books that I feel like would be good for spring for various reasons. I don't think I'll get to all of them because I'm always just adding books to my TBR, but they're books I'd like to get to. Okay, so my recommendations I've split up into two different categories. I have classics, and then I have more contemporary, but all kinds of genres that aren't classics. It just turns out there's a lot of classics that seem really fitting for spring. So my first recommendation is a book that I've probably gotten out from the library like more than any other book. It's really close, at least. It is The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady, and I already know that a sweet somebody has sent this in the mail to me, so I'm really excited to have my own copy. This is the diary, the like nature journal of, what was her name? Edith Holden, and this is from 1906. And it spans the entire year. So they're nature notes for 1906. It starts out in January, but for some reason, even though we go through all the different months, it feels like a spring read to me. Maybe because where I live, it is cold and snowy for so long that by the time spring starts coming, the birds start coming back. I've seen them coming back. Then I feel like it's time for nature again, or nature is waking up. And I just love this book so very much. There's so many pages that are just gorgeous, and I'm gonna like say thank you to Shatona for sending me one, because I've drooled over this book for a long time. Plus, isn't this a cool picture of her in her little garden there? I love it. So the next one is actually a book that I was going to unhaul. I shared it in one of my unhaul videos. It hadn't sold yet, and then when I was flipping through here, she mentioned this book, and I was like, okay, maybe I should keep it. I couldn't remember if I liked it, so I decided, well, then I'll just I'll just get rid of it, because if I don't know, is it really that good? But it's almost dropped it. The Poetry of William Wordsworth. And I think, because then I was looking through, and I do have a few poems dog-eared. I think I often get him confused with another poet. Is it Longfellow? I can't remember who. Because then I was looking through the book and I was like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And William Wordsworth does have quite a few nature poems. I mean, I think he's like most, well, I don't know if most known, but a very popular one is like, I wandered lonely as a cloud. The one that Edith Holden quoted in her spring one of her spring lines written in early spring, I actually used as part of my desktop background and phone background that I make for my House of Dreams tier over on Patreon. So that's what inspired me to keep this book and therefore put it on this list. Okay, so I think this book actually spans an entire year, but I wanted to put a Jane Austen on here because I really get in the mood for Jane Austen between now and like early fall. It's generally not a winter feeling read for me, but Persuasion is my favorite, so I wanted to put it on here. And yeah, like I said, I think it covers an entire year. It's also quite possibly her shortest. Maybe Northanger Abbey was shorter, but it's a pretty quick little read. And this is oddly one of Jane Austen's books that I read and it never felt like I was reading a classic. She is not my most favorite author. I don't love her nearly as much as other people on BookTube do, but I did really enjoy this one. We follow a main character named Anne, I believe. She years ago said no to marrying this guy and kind of lives to regret it, and thus the story unfolds. So I enjoyed this. Plus these Wordsworth classic collector edition that I have are beautiful. This book I could probably put on any list because it spans an entire year and I'm in the mood for it all the time. But I was flipping through just to see when it starts, just to like try to justify putting this book on the list, and it does start, where did it say? Oh yes, right in the second paragraph here, one May morning, or on the May morning. So The Story Girl is gonna go on here. This is probably still, yeah, I think it's still my favorite L.M. Montgomery book. A couple of the books in the Anne series are pretty high up there, and I enjoyed a couple of the Emily books, but The Story Girl is still my favorite. So we follow Sarah Stanley. She's 14 years old. She goes to live with some cousins she's never met before for, I think it's 2 years. There's The Story Girl spans 1 year, I believe, and then This Golden Road spans the second year. And this Sarah Stanley is known for being a storyteller. She's very imaginative and just, I don't know, the kind of person I would like to be around. And so this book is mostly just kind of like short little stories that she tells, but then also like little adventures and things that they go on. So I really enjoy this book. Also really enjoy these covers. I think I have every book in this edition that they published. Tundra published with Ellie McKay as she's like an illustrator, but she also these are cutouts that she does cool things with light. If you follow her on Instagram, she shows some of her process. Her work is amazing. She's definitely an artist, not just an illustrator. Yeah, I think I have every book that they published in these covers because I love them so much. Okay, and would this be a spring recommendation video without The Secret Garden? I have this cool, what's it called? Like a slip cover. There we go. I really love the cover colors of it. I also love this, but I feel like you need them both. This is a really cool illustrated edition. We are currently listening to this book together as a family. Originally, I was going to get my son just to read it, and then I realized that my oldest has never read it, so we're listening to it together. And this is my second favorite of Frances Hodgson Burnett's works. I still love A Little Princess a bit more. This one we start out with, blanking on her name, Mary Lennox. She grew up in India. She's, I don't know, between the ages of 10 and 13-ish, and her parents die. So she goes to England to live with her uncle, who kind of just leaves her in the care of the maids a little bit, mostly Sarah. I was gonna say Sarah. Mary. Sarah is from A Little Princess. Mary just wanders around the garden. Some unusual things start to occur that she tries to dig into, and there's so much character growth during this book. Mary starts out as a very conceited character, but she does have character growth, so I would recommend reading this book if you haven't, rereading it if you have, and then this edition is just really cool with lots of cool illustrations. And I love the little bird on here. So I just have a few spring recommendations, but I feel like they're ones that I really enjoy, so I hope you guys can read them if you haven't. They're spanning all sorts of genres here. So I just wanted some excuse to tell you guys to read The Unexpected Mrs. Polifax if you haven't already. I've just been loving this series. So she's a 60-something widow who wants more from life than teas and garden club meetings. I don't think I've ever read the back. In search of adventure, she decides to offer her services to the CIA, who, after all, would spot a suburban grandmother as a Cold War secret agent, and adventure she finds. And so she goes to the CIA building, offers her services, and she becomes an agent. And so in this first book, she goes to Mexico, and oh, I don't know, I just enjoy spending time with Mrs. Polifax so much. If you guys haven't started this series, please do. Oh, okay, and then if you want a tearjerker, but like in a really good way, like don't let that stop you from reading it. The Nature of Small Birds. This, we follow a family. I feel like my voice is going. I'm gonna grab some water, then I'll tell you about it. Okay, water acquired. I think I can talk again. So, the nature of small birds. We follow one family, 3 points of view over 3 different time periods. So we're following the dad in 2013. We're following the mom in 1975 and the oldest daughter in the 80s. I don't remember the exact date. So in 1975, they adopt a girl from Vietnam. This is during the Vietnam War. And we see the mom's perspective, you know, through the time of their adoption in 1975. Then we follow the adopted girl's sister in the 80s, so we get to see them both as teens. And then we follow the dad in 2013 as Mindy. She's the girl that was adopted. And she's like our main character, but we're never in her perspective. And so Mindy in 2013 is trying to search for her birth family. And so it's very interesting to me. I don't think I've ever read another book where our main character isn't even one of the perspectives we follow. We follow her entire family, but yet she's the main character, and Susie Finkbeiner does this so very well. As someone that has adopted, like there was just parts where when they get the phone call for the girl, I was just flashing back to our phone call, and I really enjoyed it. It's emotional, but like in good ways. Okay, a poetry collection that I have enjoyed is All Along You Were Blooming by Morgan Harper Nichols. So this is a beautiful collection of her poetry. I love the art. The art just screams spring with the light pink, and her poetry I enjoy quite a bit. I don't love it, but if you can get your hands on this, I would recommend reading it. And this last one, okay, honestly, the only, I feel like I have to justify why I'm putting this on a list for a spring read. I wanted to recommend a fantasy book to you guys, but fantasy to me is often like more fall, winter feeling, sometimes summer. But I wanted to recommend Mortal Queens by Victoria McCombs. This one just came out in February, and I loved it so much. And so what happens is our main character is this girl who lives in this land where every year the Fae come out of their world and pick one of the girls from the human world to be their queen, and our main character gets chosen. And I was thinking, because she goes to like the Fae world and obviously everything's beautiful there, makes me think of like new life and spring and how things get so beautiful. That's my justification for putting this on a spring list. I'm not so sure it's very springy otherwise. But then when, what's her name again? Oh yeah, Thea. She becomes queen, and there's some super sketchy things going on, and she tries to discover, figure out what's going on. And if you guys like fantasy at all, please give this one a try. It's one of my favorites so far this year. Okay, and then I have a very random assortment of books on my TBR that I feel like would be good reads for spring. Once again, I don't think I'll get to all of them, but I can try. The first one I'm going to talk about, I'm probably going to read this month. We'll see, I guess. The Tarnished Garden. This is a Secret Garden retelling with some fantastical elements, or I don't know if it's a retelling. It has some themes, I think, from The Secret Garden. I read The Gilded Girl, which was a retelling, or whatever the word we want to use is, of A Little Princess. So yeah, there's like this magic in this world that you either kindle it or you snuff it, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen in this one. Our main character in here has red hair. If anyone needs a book with a character with red hair for the, I think it's April's Read Your Bookshelf Challenge. That's an idea. Then I have Blood of the Stars. So I mentioned this one in my last video, how I kind of wanted to start it now because it felt wintry to me. And I found out that it like kind of starts in winter, but then it goes into spring. So like this time with all my snow right now and the spring that's coming is the perfect time to read it. I've started it. I haven't got very far. Not very far at all. I'm in the middle of way too many books right now. But I really enjoyed the few pages that I have read, so this is a good one for this time. One of my goals So my birthday's in May. Every year I set goals to try to achieve before my next birthday. One of them is to read an Elizabeth Googe, and my birthday's coming pretty close and I haven't read one yet. So I want to read The Bird in the Tree. That seems very springy to me. I don't really know anything about it. I have heard kind of that Elizabeth Googe's writing is either like you love it or you don't, and people are conflicted on whether or not where they think I'm gonna fall. And so I just want to give it a try. And I am kind of obsessed with birds, so I'm intrigued. Even though it probably doesn't have anything to do with birds. That's okay. This book has been on my shelf for quite some time. It was like a cover buy off of Book Outlet a long time ago. Something Good. This is 3 Women, 2 Mistakes, 1 Surprising Friendship That Changes Everything. So this is like women's contemporary fiction, Christian fiction, I think. I actually don't know if I've ever read the back. It's just totally a cover thing, and the cover screams like spring, summer, and I feel like I could be in the mood for a book like this soon. I don't think I could read these kinds of books, whatever this is, all the time, but I feel like I could read one soon. It says Alexis Marshall never meant to cause the accident that left John Robinson paralyzed. But though guilt plagues her, her husband hopes to put the past behind them. After all, he's in the middle of selling a tech business, and if Alexis admits to texting while driving, the deal could collapse and cost them millions. Meanwhile, Alexis's life is not as shiny and perfect as it may seem from the outside. She has secrets of her own, and as she becomes consumed with thoughts of the young man she hit, can she reconcile her mistake with her husband's expectations? Ooh. I feel like this is going to be deeper than I was originally thinking based on the cover. So we'll see. And like I was saying before, this time of year just makes me think of Jane Austen. And I have this Jane Austen at Home biography by Lucy Worsley. The cover feels very spring, summery, and I don't know. I'm really bad at reading like biographies like this, but I'm trying to get better, be a more educated person, and I feel like this would be a really good one for me to read. So this is a possibility. Okay, so I have 1 fantasy here and then some classics. So Belladonna with the flowers on the cover, I feel like it would be really good for spring. I've been meaning to read this one for a few months already. And I've read a little bit of the intro a few times in a few different videos, and I still haven't picked it up. So definitely a possibility. All I know is it says, for as long as Signa Farrow has been alive, the people in her life have fallen like stars. I don't know. We'll see. I want to like it because I don't know if it's a duology or if there's going to be more than one, but then Foxglove also has a beautiful cover, and I'm a sucker for beautiful covers. Okay, a couple classics. I feel like children's classics especially call to me in the spring. So I also talked about this one in my last video, Understood Betsy. Lots of people had really good things to say about this book. I feel like it would be a quick read. This one is all of the sheltered 9 years of her life. Elizabeth Ann has heard her Aunt Frances refer in whispers to those horrid Putney, Vermont cousins. But now Aunt Frances can no longer take care of her, and Elizabeth Ann is shipped off with rigid fear to the wilds of Vermont. Oh, that sounds interesting. This book is very old smelling. I've had it in my house for years and it still smells like a really old book. This one was published in 1972. It smells older than that. Cool illustrations. And then apparently I have a thing for Louisa May Alcott. Her books scream spring to me, some of them at least. I have this one which is called, oh, almost dropped it, Under the Lilacs. And so they bloom here right around my husband's birthday, which is like right at the end of May. Seems like a good spring read. Because it has no other information, I don't know anything about it. There's lots of illustrations. That was kind of strange. So I don't know anything about it, but the lilacs, I could read this while sitting under some lilacs. There's an idea. And then I've never continued with the Little Women series, and I think after Little Women / Good Wives comes Little Men. I think so. Or does Joe's Boys come first? I don't know. If it's Little Men, I have this one that I've had for a few years that I would like to read. Now I'm curious. I can't remember which one comes first, but I'll know before I put this video up, and if this one comes first, I'll read it soon. Otherwise, I need to get my hands on Joe's Boys. And the last one, What Katie Did Next. This cover feels nice and springy to me, although the book actually starts in September. So this is book 3, where we follow Katie Carr, and I've read books 1 and 2. So with this one, it starts in September, but it spans a year, and we get to go to Europe with Katie, and I feel like, to me, either spring or fall feel like Europe times, so this one could work for this time of year. I think it would be a fast read. The other 2 in the series have been quite fast, especially the first one because I enjoyed it so much, so could continue with this series. This is also would work for my DIY literature degree because Susan Coolidge, I think, when was this published? First published in 1886, so it fits under the Victorian time period, so that would work. Okay, so those are some spring book recommendations and some that are like on my TBR for the spring. I would love to hear what books do you scream spring, or like what books do you want to be reading in the next couple months. Let me know in the comments.